Hello, friends. Hope you enjoyed your ramen protein noodles that we talked about 20 minutes ago. We're back. This is going to be fun. This is something I know a little bit about because it's winning the C-suite's confidence. I'm easy to win. Others are not so easy to win because I'm very gullible and not that smart. So easy to win me over. These three badass marketing women have not so easy C-suite, and they are going to teach us all the tips and tricks to turn marketing from a cost center to a revenue and profit center. So I'm super pumped. We got Harriet come to the stage. It's so funny doing these intros. It's like, it's like we're walking in. What's up, Harriet? All the way from Ohio. Kelly, what's up? North American Dental. Yes, and Kelly's done tons of content. Kelly, I send your live stream out like once a week to people that are trying to get more marketing and ops alignment. I love it. Jennifer, Jennifer, what's going on? Come on stage. Little known fact, Jennifer was nice enough to join I think one of our first live streams like 5 years ago or 3 years or something like that when we were faking it in healthcare, and maybe we're less faking it, more making it now. But Jennifer, thanks for believing in this little operation for that long. Good to see you three. I think we have a poll to start things. Well, first of all, tell them a little bit. Harriet, I got you first in my box. We'll do quick intros and then I want to do a quick poll.
Hi, sure. My name's Harriet Meehan. I lead marketing and all front-end digital for Dayton Children's Hospital, which is based in Ohio.
Helping the babies. I love it. Helping the babies. Nothing more important than helping connect those kiddos with care, man. Yeah, it's awesome. Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, actually, I should say. I'm Jennifer Schultz-Quanjo. I am the Chief Marketing and Growth Officer for OU Health, which is the University of Oklahoma's academic health system. And I report to our CEO, so I am in a C-suite role, so I'm excited for this topic. I lead all of our clinical strategy, business development partnerships, marketing, communications, community impact programs. So basically everything external and then internal communications.
I love it. And so you tell us how to win your confidence, Jennifer. That's what we're going to do. And you weren't always in that thing, but you won everybody over clearly. Kelly, what's up?
Hey. I lead marketing for North American Dental Group. We have over 250 dental clinics across the U.S. And so I manage all marketing.
Thank you. Real quick, audio team, I can't really hear too well. Can we turn them up a little bit? I think we've got a poll. Let's put the poll up real quick. Kelly, it's so good to have you. We got a DSO and two health systems. So we're going to get a variety of voices on this. It's really important. Polls up. Where does your marketing sit in your organization's marketing hierarchy? Full seat at the table, voice and strategy. Good for you. Consulted on major initiatives. We just want your opinion once in a while. Executing. I think I'm running out of the copy starting to wear off. Executing on decisions made by others, still building influence, or depends on the project initiative. How often they call me in. I love it. All right, give it a minute. How many people we got in this thing? How many people? Yeah, awesome. All right. Good stuff. Full seat at the table, voice and strategy. Oh my, look, we got some badass. Still building influence, depends on the project initiative. Hey, that's all of us. Marketing managers, directors, we are here to learn from these three badasses. Okay, 10 more seconds and we're going to be getting into it. This is going to be really fun, and I had the chance to meet with this crew ahead of time, and it's going to be a fruitful conversation. We have three very different perspectives. All right, we can post a poll. The majority, full seat at the table, voice and strategy. That's badass. Okay, well, why are you guys here? We're going to learn so much. That's good. Y'all are way ahead of the game. So, guys, I want to open up. When you think about earning the confidence of the C-suite, what does that actually look like? Tangibly, Harriet, like what's the first order of business you think of?
I think the first order of business is to understand the business. You need to understand how the business operates so that you can ask great questions, make informed choices, and show good partnership. So come in curious, ask those questions, learn about the business, be hungry for information. And I think that automatically earns you a level of trust and respect.
Couldn't agree more. It's fun to do the marketing stuff, but marketing for marketing's sake, doesn't inspire a whole bunch of comments. Jennifer, you agree with that? Do you need an MBA to be a great marketer in the C-suite?
Oh, I don't know. I think it probably depends on who you talk to. I'm a big proponent of getting advanced education, especially if you don't have a classic business or marketing background. But if you have the right kind of degree and the right experience, not necessarily so. Admittedly, I am an MBA, so it's a tough question you're asking me.
Hey, I wanted it loaded. I wanted it loaded.
But I agree with Harriet, and I would also add that if you show up with ownership, that also goes a long ways because owners are pragmatic and make prudent decisions. And so if you show up as an owner, you are understanding how to steward dollars better. And that's one of the things that I think surprises people when a marketing person is thinking in that way.
And an owner thinks a little differently about the outcome. They don't, the marketing muck is whatever. What is the one thing that the business cares most about? And that's typically butts and seats. Kelly, what comes to mind first when you think about earning the confidence of the C-suite?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely echo Harriet and Jennifer. I think too, if your first order of business is the health of the business and how can market to earn the trust of that C-suite because you're
Kelly, you're cutting out. The answer sounded badass. I'm sure it was. We couldn't hear it. Let's see if we can get the internet dialed back in. Jennifer, you've always approached marketing through a business lens. Like, what are some of the things that helped you be seen as the owner? What gave you that perception? So I don't think just is the wrong word, but instead of being looked at as the marketing leader, but an owner.
Yeah, I think in healthcare there was a piece of advice I got early on that was extremely important, which was to piggyback off of what Harriet said about knowing the business. It was stay close to the concept of the payers and stay close to the physicians, which actually speaks to understanding how the business works. And so by way of that, I've spent the lion's share of my time going through different ranks in my career, and particularly aligned with the physicians to really understand how the business is driven. And I think the other piece, and this is certainly something I've benefited from with getting an MBA, but you could benefit from just being well versed in the language of business. But when I talk about things, I'm talking through the language of business versus the language of marketing. So rather than talking about market share, or as an example, I might talk about the number of people we're serving in our community, or something along the lines of, I just absolutely cannot stand the get the word out comment. I'm like, if I'm going to get the word out, I'll tell the town gossip and go to the truck stop where all the farmers are drinking coffee. It'll be taken care of. If you want something really, really strategic, I'm happy to build a go-to-market plan for you. And so the way in which I language our work is something that I focused a lot on over the years.
Yeah, language matters. And speaking now, I guess the owners, the CEO, CFO, COOs speak. And by the way, that truck stop sounds like that sounds like the place to be. I want to be part of that barbershop. Harriet, you've always built your marketing based on the business goals. Like, what does that look like? How do you start that conversation? Where are you going? And what is typically the business goal in healthcare?
Yeah. So the way that I went about it, and I'd recommend you go about it, start with your overarching system goals, or, whatever size of practice or group you're a part of. Presumably there are some high level goals for what need to be accomplished in the year. And hopefully those are being broadcast through your organization and people understand them. But if they're not, go to your CFO, go to your COO and say, I need to understand the system goals. From there, you just have to think about laddering that into your area. So there's a very clear connection. We start with really high level, the system goals. Then we ask ourselves, what is the marketing problem to be solved here? So if one of our goals is to grow share in a specific service line or market area, what can marketing do? What is the marketing problem to be solved here? Then we layer that down into kind of our core initiatives, tactical programs, and of course, you need to do good measurement and reporting. So this was the high level goal. Here's how marketing can contribute to driving that forward. Here's our metrics and results. And if something's not working, that's fine. Own it. Say we tested this, we tried it, it didn't work, we pivoted. And then obviously close the loop with your stakeholder set, your C-level leadership team, so they understand the impact and the learnings that you're having. So just really think about that almost like rung by rung ladder and structure it in a way where for your audience, your C-level audience, it's very clear to them the connection points.
Yep. And I think having the confidence to say, this is how marketing can help, and it can't fix everything you just said, right? Like, is that, you have to have the gumption.
Yeah, for sure. And where's, where's the best use of time and effort? I always kind of joke, all the world's a marketer, everybody has ideas, which is wonderful. I welcome ideas. Many of them are good, but we need to help guide them with data and experience on what's really going to get them what they want. If I can put $2 here, I can put $2 there. Where does it make sense? Where do I get the best return? And then you need to back that up with data. Your opinion alone is not enough. So.
Yeah. Yep. And when those plans are being laid out, I guess you also have to not just lay out where marketing can help, but how you're going to track it, what's reasonable, what's useful, and all of that kind of fun.
Absolutely. And try and look for benchmarks where you can find them. So you know what's normal in your region or your industry, and you can show from authoritative sources to your stakeholders how you're performing relative to peer sets or other organizations that are similar in your industry.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Gonna go to market planning here. Kelly, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I don't know if I have ever seen a marketer as good as getting ops on their side as you, Kelly. In your the way that you build out media for capacity, all very brilliant. How did you start though? I know the end result is sharp. Where did you start to get ops on your side?
I mean, very similar with the key points of the conversation thus far. It was first understanding the business, understanding where are opportunities funding. The root cause of some of my largest opportunities really did fall in the operations space.
This is like that Verizon commercial. Have y'all seen the new T-Mobile commercial with Landman with Billy Bob, where he's like ragging on Verizon and saying that, can you hear me now? You remember how Verizon was doing that? And he's like, hey man, they were better than us. Kelly, we will wait for you to return. I promise, guys. And Kelly has another piece of content that's very good with us, is a live stream about how she got ops on her side and builds out media based on capacity, based on the providers, based on the appointment availability. It's super good. Kelly's phenomenal. Marketing leader. Jennifer, OU Health was largely had a marketing function that was PR driven comms, and you kind of changed it into a business to business function. Did data help you in that way? How did you move the whole system over like that?
It's a great question. Data certainly played a role, but I think also structure and culture was huge for that. I was fortunate enough to be able to centralize all of the more traditional areas of a marketing and communications shop when I first got here. I'm really trying to move the organization into a space where we did service marketing. So up until that point, there hadn't been much. And then over time, as we started to really align our culture, transform, we did a merger with our College of Medicine faculty practice to have everybody in one cohesive structure. That allowed us to then go live on an EHR that started to shore up data. And then from there, we layered a CRM on top of that. So our data internally is now coalescing for our use. And then we also bought third-party data via insurance claims. And so that's being fed into that tool as well. So that's a huge piece of sort of marketing further down the funnel for us. But also, I think what's been really critical for us is to be investing in market share data and those tools to be able to do forecasting and to be able to analyze where the region's going from a healthcare perspective. That allows us to be giving people that future forward. So one of the education points I've had to make with our C-suite is volume is great. And when volume is up, the CFO and the COO are super excited because they're measuring against our past financials and our past run rate. And I always tell them that that's a leading metric, and market share is the lagging metric. So the key question when volume is up is if we're going to see that we are actually grabbing market share versus are we just growing with the market? So volume is up and it's great, but is the market growing at a faster rate than your volume's growing? That means you're losing share. Or are you growing your volumes at a faster rate than the market's growing? Then you're gaining. And so that's been a really, really big sort of inflection point for our organization to understand how those two things interrelate and the importance of it.
That's super sharp. And guys, Jennifer, what I take from this, as marketers, we tried to take all the credit when things are great. Oh yeah. Marketing drove all that volume, but like, was the volume coming anyways? Like, Nashville's blowing up. You would have gotten it anyways. Did you get less than the rest of Nashville, or which is also growing?
Just a quick point to that. It's very important to recognize that there's operational strategy that will grow the business, and that's not a function of marketing. And so you have to really be clear on that, so that way you aren't being unrealistic about what you're going to claim and attribute.
Yeah. It's not all our credit and it's not all our fault. Hey, if something's not going well, dude, I told the COO we didn't have capacity there, or the providers weren't very nice. Very fun, guys. And I think it's really being realistic, being taken seriously by the C-suite. Like Jennifer is saying, it's like, you can't take all the credit. You have to look at the business as a business function. Is marketing really helping? What's going on with the wider thing outside of just our business? How's the market doing? How's the overall macro stuff going? And then marketing is just a function of that. Harriet, you came into let's just call it a health system that hadn't predominantly grown through digital advertising or modern marketing, if you will. So how did you kind of break some of those long-term held assumptions and all that kind of hearts and minds?
So I was, sort of like Jennifer was saying, and I think this is common in healthcare, heavy PR, heavy comms, they're very strong in that space. More growth-oriented marketing, I think there's probably a greater range of sophistication along that level. I was very lucky to be recruited in by my boss, who is our chief strategy officer, also leads marketing and comms in some other areas, specifically because she wanted growth. She understands share very well, which Jennifer was speaking about. She understood the opportunities out there, and that PR and comms alone were not going to get us there. So from the start, I was empowered, but that said, change is difficult. It's one thing to say, oh, go ahead and do your thing, but it can make people kind of uncomfortable as you're transitioning. So, candidly, we went through a lot of change the first year. We looked at organizational changes in design, talent and upskilling, our partnerships. We were using various agencies with varying degrees of results. So really doing some evaluation there and making some adjustments. And then shifting our budget. Our mix was really heavy in mass and upper funnel. We have fantastic awareness. We were pretty light in lower funnel or mid funnel, interest, conversion, et cetera. I knew enough from my background to know that the mix was off for what our goals were. So it was really just aligning our budgets and tactics to the results we wanted to see, and then of course watching it. And we've been in such a heavy setup phase over the last year. It's really just been over the last few months that we've been able to do really much more robust KPI reporting, conversion reporting, really watching our funnel, where we're having fallout, et cetera, looking at submarket share movement, et cetera. It takes a while to build that framework, and you just have to be diligent and patient with it and try and inspire and coach change through it.
Patient. Harriet is patient. If you're coming into an org that hasn't historically done digital modern marketing, patience has got to be the number one thing. And Harriet, by the way, I hope consolidating your agencies is a good thing for Cardinal. Okay, that was scary. Let's keep rolling. Jennifer, what's going on? You've been intentional about tying every budget request to a business case. Every budget request to a business case. What does that look like? How do you field those when they're coming at you? What do you ask for in return?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. This is an area that has been new discipline for our team. And it's been very well proven thus far, where we do not just go in and ask for a big old lump of extra budget, or we always ask for this percentage more, or what have you. When we go in and we ask for a budgetary increase in a fiscal year, we are tying it to a very specific initiative that has a business case attached to it, and varying degrees of data and proof points around that. So as we asked for an increase to get more technology, we actually had a business case that we knew would be able to track the downstream ROI in our CRM. And so we were able to demonstrate the top line average contribution margin of a specific number of cases, the cost of the equipment and the technology, the capital cost of the implementation, the resources that would be allocated to it within the department, and things of that nature. And then it came with also increase in, we called it just new media, saying we have this tool we're going to have, we're going to need to actually, use it. And we were able to then say, okay, if we project out of what we think we could get, it's probably way higher than what you're going to say other C-suite executives would believe, even though we all know that it could really, you could be cooking with gas on stuff like this where you're driving a lot of volume. And so we discounted it down heavily, where we were very conservative. And we said, we went to our operations teams to specific areas of the organization with what we call market readiness, capacity, quality, culture, days to appointment, things of that nature. We went to those places that were more ready, said, could you actually take on 3 more of these types of cases without adding cost to your clinic with staff or what have you? Yep. So then we took those and we took our discounted down numbers that we'd validated, and we showed like a 12.3 month 12-month buyback period or what have you. So we're like just over a year. And so that was one of the ways that we were able to get a big increase in capital. Another one that we also have done is to say, hey, like, we're outsourcing these pieces. And so, sometimes there's things where you're just fully outsourcing it. You don't have the capabilities in-house. And so we're like, we actually don't want to fully insource, but we need to hybrid insource this. And so this is what that team looks like. This is why you would insource some of it. This is why you wouldn't insource the whole thing. This is how we're going to actually do replacement cost and what have you. That's been another way for us to really look at that. So we do tie everything to plans. Sometimes they have a really strong payback period, and other times it's demonstrating cost avoidance or a cost neutral type of a proposition.
That's there was a lot in there. The first thing I heard was, guys, don't just ask for the standard 3 to 5%. Hey man, we're crushing it. Can we get more budget? I think we could like really do well next year. But not the standard percentage increases don't make sense. Jennifer actually went to department heads. She went to service lines and said, hey, how many more cases could you add? So going to ops counterparts, whatever that may be, looking like COO or actual service line manager, saying, how much more could you take on? And we're going to go back and tie it. And also, Jennifer mentioned, be conservative with your estimates, because you could blow it out of the park. But if you don't want a big fail on your hands. And I see Ralph said, I'm going to take questions as they come too. Ralph said, I made a recommendation that flopped, but we did see a big impact on our performance as a result. And now leadership questions everything I suggest. Damn, Ralph, I'm sorry. How do you rebuild credibility after a major mistake? Ralph being very transparent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pegg. Harriet, what do you do after a big oopsie?
So what I would recommend, it's a little hard not knowing the exact context around it, which you probably don't need to put in the chat. But I think it's a couple of things. One, and I'm sure you're doing this, own the mistake, own the mistake, own what happened, own what you learned from it, and make sure that that is very clear. The second thing I would say is, if you're putting forward future recommendations and you need to rebuild that credibility around the recommendation, put in real sort of milestone check-in. So we're gonna launch this thing and we're gonna test. This is the exact result that we're looking for. If we fall short, this is how we're gonna turn it off, or we're gonna pivot. This is what the impact will be. I don't know the detail on this, but if there was a big impact on something that was a new recommendation that flopped, my guess is there probably weren't appropriate kind of gates built in to check on progress and pivot before it becomes a really big impact. I'm speculating here, so sorry if I'm getting it wrong. But I think if you can show that you have measures in place to test and watch how things are going, and that if it's not going well, you will pivot or turn it off, that also helps build back some credibility and just a feeling of control and line of sight into the initiative.
Marketing is still art, guys. We're going to fail. We're going to fail. That's part of the fun. It's not, I mean, we talk about numbers and proving it out all the time. Marketing is half art. Let's just start with that. Jennifer, anything else to add?
Yeah, I agree with Harriet on the sort of milestones, and I call it sort of small cycle change or test change, where you're iterating and pivoting as you're going, because once it's, I always say toothpaste is out of the tube, I've launched the campaign or what have you, you can't take it back. So we do a lot of that, and I always have to be very thoughtful when you're going to bring something external for the organization, and shouldn't be a surprise to all of your major stakeholders, and you should have done testing and things of that nature. And so that would maybe be one kind of other food for thought. But I think the other piece for me is always to really contextualize what is a major failure or not. So failure is relative. And so a failure inside of a $200 million organization is far different than inside of a $6 billion organization, either from an exposure perspective or the size of the dollars or what have you. And so I always try to contextualize failure and what is actually the definition of success. So sometimes when you're working with folks that don't really understand what the function of marketing should be, their perspective of failure might be a bad media story. It's like, no, it's not. Media cycles come and go. And so, I had a boss once that had this sort of story that she talked about around how they were trying to get her to fix something in the media, and it was like it was her fault. And she was like, I'm sorry, but the way that you fix this is you don't do this again as an organization. It's like, let's contextualize failure and be really clear about what it is and what it isn't, because the thing about it is that sometimes you have to iterate. So I always say, if you're iterating and pivoting, is anything ever really a failure? Or is it that you're evolving a product? And in the space of marketing, I don't want to de-emphasize our importance in the organization, but did anybody die? Is there a malpractice issue? Was this a sentinel event for a patient? And the answer is almost always going to be no. And so I really try to contextualize success and failure for the organization. And if people really don't understand marketing, they might think that a campaign that the doctors don't like is a failure. Or I once had a mailer go out and it was to a market that wasn't used to getting direct mail. And you can about imagine in a 50,000 person mailing, it was like one person was mad sort of a thing, and everybody's flipping out, and you go, well, it's one person and it's actually some kind of a coincidence that they got this mailer. Like this isn't an issue.
Yeah. Any provider comes at you guys and says, hey, listen, what happened with this? You just said, what happened with your med mal case? Okay, leave me out of it. It's just marketing, guys. It's not that serious. Medical marketing is marketing that matters, but I think the contextual, clearly, guys, y'all have hit a nerve with this one, and I think all of us have a little guilt we're feeling about stuff that we probably shouldn't. So this is good. We're healing perfectionists, as Paul says. We had Harriet, back to you. We'll stay on it a little bit. How do you get buy-in that failures are part of the learning process in marketing?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I'll be candid with you, not having a healthcare background and coming into healthcare fairly recently, the stakes are different in healthcare. They're quite different. And where other industries might have a higher tolerance for fail fast, learn fast, when you're talking about mistakes on the clinical side, and often the clinical nature in an organization sort of sets the culture and the tone, understandably, there is a lower appetite for risk and failure because it's, in our case, children's health and lives. So I think you have to be patient with that and understand that, but you also have to watch out for the dark side of that, right? Which is, if I can't fail, if I have to hide my failure, what does that connect to? So, safety issues, serious safety issues, quality, et cetera, people have to be candid, and failure can't be hand slapped or hidden away because it can have much more dire consequences. We have done a lot of work in our organization around shifting this culture to one that is more accepting of experimentation and failure within safety parameters, of course. On the marketing side, I agree very much with Jennifer said, with what she said, what is the context around it? So some of the items that we have, because I have our front-end digital tools, do provide medical triage and medical advice. We use AI technology that helps with that, and the stakes can be high. So we have very clear parameters around what is an acceptable level of failure, when do you raise the flag, and making sure that information is very well socialized and agreed on prior to whatever. So we work very closely with our legal and compliance teams. I'm sort of operating under this no surprises. You know what we're doing. We're being very clear about it. We're all on the same page about where this tolerable level of risk or failure is. And if we're getting to the edges of it, what do we do? What's our change or pivot at that point? I think it's that broad communication, broad understanding. Do not work in a back room. Do not work in a silo. That especially in this digital era with a lot of data transfer, BAs, HIPAA, AI, you do need to be really cautious. So I'm not saying don't experiment, don't try. You should, but be very transparent and make sure you get that alignment and buy-in up front.
Hey, and the stakes were high at Kroger too. If I go to Aldi, I'm gonna have a not enjoyable experience. I'm gonna get the wrong damn food. My babies are gonna get sick. I love Kroger. Let's not discount how important that is too. Harriet, what was the number one thing going into healthcare from another industry you want other marketers when they jump to our awesome industry? By the way, the bird being down, that's a bad omen. I just saw that. That's fucking terrible right there.
So I would say it's a balance, because I do believe good marketing is good marketing, almost regardless of industry. Really great marketing, really great branding works across the board. Healthcare does have some nuances. It really does. And I think when I came in initially, I sort of minimized those. I was a little ignorant to it. And as I've learned more, the point Jennifer had made about, being close to the physicians, understanding your payer mix, your payer relationships. Payers are a really interesting dynamic that you don't see in many other industries, and they hold quite a bit of power and influence. So there are some nuances. So take your good transferable skills, bring them in and learn them, but don't think you know it all, right? Be open to some of the things with healthcare that are some pretty unique, important nuances, and learn those. That would be my advice.
That's fun. And I couldn't agree more. It is a crazy complex business. You'll get there. The beauty is it is really important to learn the business side, and it'll keep you guessing. It's a constant enigma trying to do HIPAA compliant advertising and marketing, keep payers, providers, and patients happy. Jennifer, we had a question come in. Leadership wants to launch 5 new service lines next quarter, but won't give me more budge or headcount. How do you say no without sounding like you're not a team player? Leadership wants to launch 5 new service lines. How do you politely tell them no, thank you?
Well, they're probably not going to like my answer, because you're going to have had a lot of pre-gaming to be able to help with the prioritization. So we track hours and capacity in our department. And so that's one of the tools that we have to be able to contextualize what we're able to execute on and when. We have service level agreements of how long things take. We have a lot of work streams and process flow about how things move through our function for the organization and what's the life cycle of developing something. So we've set those expectations early for people to understand. There's also a lot of debate, I think, in the industry about what's the appropriate benchmarking for these various functions. There's a lot of different things that might be inside or outside of it. My team is not classic marketing and comms only, so there's not a great benchmark unless you just start to look at strategy offices, but then some of that isn't applicable to our organization. So I found that it's not helpful for me to try to pull out benchmarks, because my colleagues will debate it all day long about what the appropriate ones are. So instead, I'm more interested in talking about what's the organization actually needing from this function? How do we execute? And then what are the top pieces that we're tackling versus not? And then in addition to that, I also might have a philosophy of the organization needs us to execute on 5 service lines. So we're going to execute on 5 service lines, and we're going to have a dialogue in our team about how we actually would get that work done, because nothing drives me more to frustration and disappointment if our team is saying we don't have the capacity, but there's silly things being worked on in the department that don't have any value from my perspective. So I always will say stuff like, if this is a priority of the organization, then what does it take for those things to go away? So sometimes I find that you might have clinic managers or physician department chairs or things like that chipping away at your capacity by wanting flyers and books and, can you plan this event? We would like to do X, Y, and Z. Here's a cool story. And it just doesn't fit into anything. And all of that loose change adds up to a lot. And so I'm more apt to say we're cutting all of that out to do the 5 than to say I can't do the 5. I have been told that I'm a very pragmatic leader around the marketing space, which is, I think, a compliment, because, like, well, the last thing I want to do when you're trying to prove the business function of marketing is to say, I'm not going to work on the 5 major strategies. That seems kind of like you're shooting yourself in the foot. I would not recommend doing that. I would recommend ditching the parties and the reunions and the table of the month and the random media story idea from somebody that doesn't have any authority over that anyhow, kind of a thing. If the priorities of the organization aren't your priorities, then what is the purpose of the function?
I love that, guys. And you have to know what those silly things are that take some nuance, and you have to understand what we're wasting time on and what the bigger priorities are. Then bring that to leadership and say, hey, guys, if you want us to do that thing, which I agree, those service lines are important, we have to not do those things. And then having utilization and capacity metrics and all that stuff at your hands, at your disposal really helps too, because you can show, listen, the team's maxing out. And I agree, those service lines need to get marketed. But dude, we need to not be doing all of this other silly stuff. Very good, Jennifer. I think that was a perfect answer. Harriet, we had another question come in that said they tried to get some kind of campaign done with their operational counterpart, but they were basically ignored. And I know you made CFO your BFF. How do you do that besides charming them? What do you do?
So, I mean, related to our CFO, I think day 1 on the job, when my boss was sort of giving me my orientation, she's the chief strategy officer. I'd said, would it be okay for me to meet with the CFO? I'd really like to understand essentially our balance sheet, how we run as a business, where we make money, where we lose money, even though we're a nonprofit, we get certain supplemental tax benefits, et cetera, et cetera. It's important for me to get it. And not surprisingly, he was quite happy to share it with me. I think, your CFOs often will be open to this because they want marketing partners who understand and are thinking this way about the business. So he walked me through it. We had a great session. He's a phenomenal CFO. We've, tripled in size under his financial leadership. And then he invited me back for another session. And then he said, would you like to learn about our 5-year plan? I said, I would love to learn about the 5-year plan. But it was giving me all this great insight to help guide my team. And to Jennifer's point, focus less on the party or the dinner or the sponsorship that needs to be staffed for the walk. These things, I mean, have value to the community and the people who work on them. I understand that, but we need to prioritize our efforts to where we really make money. And the areas where we really lose money, we need to be careful about. We're always balancing mission and margin. We do have a higher percentage of Medicaid payers than non. But we need our commercial payers, and we need to be profitable so we can take care of our Medicaid kids. It's the flywheel, and helping people really understand the financial flywheel and the rationale behind the prioritization it becomes a pretty easy sell and the teams get on board. And then of course the CFO and the finance teams are pleased because they can see that you really understand and you're aligned to what they want and you're reflecting that to them through your prioritization and your plans. So I'm not trying to minimize it, but I don't think it was really that difficult. I think it's having that curiosity to learn so you can take that learning and do better marketing with it, be a better business partner with it.
Yeah, no margin, no mission. And I think the key there is what Harriet did is she went to the CFO. Guys, you have to go and sit with them, and you don't have to have all the answers or know all the nuance, but just sitting with them and absorbing what the business leaders, sometimes that's just your boss. That's the VP of marketing. If you're a marketing manager and just saying, what the hell actually matters in this business? I don't get it. Do you want CPL? Do you want book the point? What matters? What matters? And I think Harriet had the gumption to go do that. Jennifer, you agreed, you have a huge org. Would you be comfortable with someone coming and saying, Jennifer, like, what's the business side of this thing? What helps? What do you want to see out of people coming? And by the way, Jennifer, add-on question, people were asking, Jennifer, how do you get seen as someone that can do, how do you move from just a marketing function to being seen as a healthcare leader in general? So if you could answer me those two run-on damn questions.
Yeah, I think so. Just thinking about being maybe earlier in your career where you might be a marketing manager or a director, I think that people really, I have found that if you engage people in more executive roles where you're trying to learn and you're wanting mentorship and you do it in a way that's very professional and respectful of their time, that you can network within your own organization. And I certainly did that in my last health system where I learned a lot from doing that. I also was willing to go to early morning meetings for the service lines that I oversaw. So I sat in a lot of physician meetings where they were doing the business of the service line, where I was just listening in. And I was willing to show up, and if it was 6:30 or 7 a.m., it was okay because I wanted to learn about it and try to really understand them so I get credibility with those pockets of physician groups and the leaders over them. So I think that if you're trying to learn the business, you shouldn't hesitate to be asking and reaching out. I also think too, in larger health systems, I think that the VPs run the day-to-day of the organization. And so you don't have to say, oh my God, I have to try to get a meeting with the CFO. You don't have to do that. You could meet with the AVP over finance for the big tertiary hospital. You could meet with the person that is maybe the executive director of payer strategy or something like that. You don't have to meet with the top of the organization to get that understanding. And then I think the other question of how do you be seen as a healthcare executive instead of a marketing executive, I think that really gets into your own priorities. And I think there's that key question that you have to ask yourself at some point in your career of if you are a marketing executive that switches categories and industries, which is in itself an incredible skill set, one that I never developed and I don't have. Or if you are going to be a healthcare business leader who happens to be overseeing specific functions in the organization, marketing being one of them. And so I have great respect for both. I've seen people do cross industry and cross category, and Harriet can certainly speak to that. I myself am not a product marketing expert at all. I have never marketed products. I would not be somebody that would be the top hire for something like that. But I have been in healthcare now for 20 years, and so I understand how the business works. And so there's all these adjacencies around sort of the areas that I kind of grew up in that start to kind of latch on to your function in your area, which is how my span has grown into what it currently is today. So I think it's really understanding that for yourself. And I remember the first time somebody told me that it's going to depend on what I want. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm trying to make my way. But it really does. It's what do you want to do? Do you want to be in this business truly, or do you want to be a marketing executive?
Yeah, I love it, guys. 20 years, Jennifer, 20 years. It's guys, it takes that long to become an expert like Jennifer. I think everybody's trying to shortchange things these days, and it's not possible. And I really like what Jennifer said. Go meet with other people. That doesn't have to be the CFO, AVPs, all of that. And remember, she mentioned be respectful of their time. I think the only thing that's frustrating is people ask for other people's time and they do nothing with it. It's okay to absorb on that call, but do something with it before you ask for more time. And I sometimes don't see that happen. That can be frustrating. Jennifer, phenomenal help on that one. Harriet, any final thoughts for those out there that want to be sitting in your seat one day?
I would say, In my experience, marketers bring a really unique skill set to organizations. Call it voice of the customer, customer first, market horizon, market disruption. You bring unique skill in that space. And if you can take that and translate those skills into clear, demonstrable business impact, everyone will want you on their team. So don't forget the things that you can do that are uniquely well. Yes,
Yep.
you want to, you want to understand the finance, you understand the operations, et cetera, but you bring unique skills as a marketer, which is why marketing is, a valuable function in an organization. Just marry that up with the business and the business results, and you will have success, I believe.
I love it. I love it. Harriet, Jennifer, you good if people reach out to you on LinkedIn and ask you questions? They are two of the most giving marketers I've ever met. So hit them up on LinkedIn. They'll help you out. Clearly, we struck some nerves here, which is a good thing. And the attendance went up on the presentation. I love it. I told you these two are super women. So awesome. Thank you for joining us. I really owe you one, Harriet and Jennifer. Appreciate you guys. I'm sure lots of people are going to be hitting you up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Cardinal owes you a big debt of gratitude. We'll see y'all later.
Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.